Welcome to the Nick Taylor Horror Show. Shep Gordon is a legend in multiple industries. He was a manager extraordinaire to such acts as Alice Cooper, Blondie, Teddy Pendergrass, the Gipsy Kings, Rick James, and many, many more. Shep was also the sole inventor of the celebrity chef, paving the way for names like Emeril Lagasse and Anthony Bourdaine. What many people don't know is that Shep was also a major horror producer back in the day. He produced a number of classics from Wes Craven and John Carpenter, including They Live, Village of the Damned, The People Under the Stairs, Prince of Darkness, and Shocker. But above all things, Shep is an extraordinary human being and has a lot to teach the world, particularly those who work in entertainment. Shep first got on my radar with the fantastic documentary that Mike Myers did about him called Supermensch. Supermensch is a movie that I rewatch at least 3 times a year. The lessons in it are absolutely golden, and there's a lot in there that I just try to remind myself of all the time. Shep's life story not only uncovers the keys to having a prolific life, but shows you how to do a lot of good along the way. It's a really incredible movie and a downright fascinating and hysterical watch. I also highly recommend Shep's autobiography, They Call Me Supermensch, which is also loaded with some of the most incredibly actionable insights I've ever heard on the topics of success, business, entertainment, and life in general. Clearly, I'm a huge fan of Shep and was very humbled that he took the time to speak to me and answer my questions. Shep really means a great deal to me, so this was super, super exciting. Anyway, let's get to Shep, shall we? Here is the Supermensch himself, Mr. Shep Gordon. Hello, Shep. How are you?
Good, Nick. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. How's everything over there?
Beautiful. A gorgeous day.
Well, thank you again for taking the time. I really, really do appreciate it. And I mean, up front, I do want to let you know that I've been a tremendous fan of yours ever since the documentary came out. I stumbled upon it at South by Southwest and was just completely and totally blown away. To this day, I rewatch it at least 3 times a year because there's the lessons in there are so critically important to me, and particularly in these times. There's so many elements of your life and your character and who you are that I think are critically important to be reminded of. So thank you for being so generous with your wisdom and for kind of being a spiritual mentor to me. I mean, I've gotten a tremendous amount out of your life and work. So I guess I just want to start by saying thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's nice to hear. Thank you.
So, I mean, another thing that I've gotten from you is the kind of daily gratitude practice. I mean, to this day, I just say thank you out loud first thing in the morning and last thing at night. And not to get too spiritual, but from
I just watched an Oprah Winfrey conversation, and she talked about exactly that.
Really?
Yeah. Before they asked her, "Well, how do you explain your success?" And she said, "Before I get out of bed every day, I say thank you, and really try and live in gratitude for a moment."
Yeah.
And I think it can't hurt.
No, definitely not. Well, I've read that when you're in a state of gratitude, you're psychologically incapable of fear and you're incapable of anger. And those are the 2 most destructive emotions to success in any realm, whether it's emotional or whatever. But
I don't know if I agree with it completely, because I definitely go through fear. I don't really go through much anger. I think anger maybe more. Fear is a weird emotion. I don't understand fear, even though I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't quite figured it out, like where that actually comes from. I think I talk about this, and people ask questions about it. So for me, maybe it's a self-worth issue. In my case anyway. But I still get that it's really weird because now I realize I don't have to be worried about winning and losing. And I still get it. If it's for someone else, I still get a fear of sort of losing for them. I'll lose an hour of sleep here or there. It's a weird emotion anyway.
But it sounds like it mostly applies to other people, though, as opposed to like the people that you're working with or managing.
No, I get the fear for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I'm pretty I've had it a few times. I was always, I always used to, getting up in age, I always had to deal with people whose parents were dying or somebody was dying in their life. And I had never really had to face mortality on my own, for myself. Mm-hmm. And I used to tell people, I had this line that I used to say that, listen, man, you have to, if you believe in a higher spirit, the only thing he gives all of us is birth and death. So unless this higher spirit is a real scumbag, it's got to be a good thing. You know, birth is good. He's given us a gift. And that all works until the moment you get a phone call saying you have a disease that's going to kill you. And then fear takes over so much deeper than gratitude.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Moments, but I just had that conversation with there's a cancer doctor who's been very kind to me, and he's sort of my go-to guy, and he just found out he had cancer.
Oh my gosh, the doctor does?
Doctor, and I saw him last week, and we had that conversation. I said, okay, so how many hundreds of people have you comforted on the phone, and how fucking scared did you get when you got the phone call from your doctor?
Oh my God.
Really, but that's just the way life is. So anyway, that's a long circle of fear. But
right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that about your friend, though. That's really unfortunate.
I think he will. We won't be fine, but his brain, he understands that there's a time limit on all of our stuff, and
right.
Excited to try and cure it.
So where did your kind of gratitude practice come from? Is it something that you always had, or is it something that you developed gradually?
Yeah, no, just about everything for me is a knee-jerk reaction. I would say some of the greatest influences on my life were Joseph Campbell, first and foremost. Back in the 70s, I moved to Maui. And I think it must have been shortly thereafter, maybe in the early 80s or something, that Bill Moyers did a series with him.
Oh, yeah, the interview series.
Yeah. And I tripped across it somehow here in Maui on a cassette.
Oh, wow.
And then for the next 10 years or so, I made it mandatory that anybody who stayed with me at the house watch the series. Really? Yeah. I just said, you got to watch this.
Yeah.
You don't have, 3 or 4 hours. The reason you're coming to Maui is to watch this, and then you can start your journey. But he just had, he dealt with the concept of bliss. And how do you find your bliss? And it's the first time it really got me thinking about where I was headed and was it a blissful place? And I was living in the fast lane in LA, and I got to meet then a human mentor in Roger Verger,
right?
Who, very peaceful and very happy and very successful, and had taken all the rings off the merry-go-round and still was happy. Whereas in the world I was living in, the guys who had won, the external things weren't real happy. So I think Joseph Campbell got me looking for someone who could teach me how I could find my bliss. And when I met Jay, I found someone who appeared to have met his bliss, found his bliss, and he let me hang out with him. And then I got the lucky chance to be around His Holiness, who lives in a state of bliss.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
So all of it done unconsciously. I think, although His Holiness never said it to me, he never really said much of anything. I was his cook, so he'd say thank you. But I always felt when I was around him, and I saw him interact with people a lot. I was still on his board, so I've gotten to see him now in a suit and tie, a different perspective than a chef's coat. And I always felt, although he never spoke about it, that his bliss was seeing the miracle in everything.
Right.
Whether it was a cup, a person, an animal, a leaf, a piece of paper, a television set, whatever. He always seemed to get this giggle of seeing a miracle, and then the information would come in. And so that's sort of that's when I hit upon in my own life, like waking up and going, wow, what a miracle. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I just felt, and it just sort of became a way of doing it. And I forget it once in a while. I get in a confused state or a fear state or something, and I'll jump out of bed and go right to bolt to whatever that human thing is. But I try and come back to it. So, but it's basically knee jerk.
Yeah.
I think there are principles that, like transcendental meditation seems to, people I know who really are serious about it seem to be able to find the place of gratitude.
Yeah.
So I think there are practices that can get you there.
Mm-hmm.
I just never was a practitioner.
Interesting.
I have a friend coming here for the Ram Dass retreat who we have dinner. He's one of the musicians in Krishna Das band.
Oh, wow.
And he teaches transcendental meditation in Japan.
Wow.
So I just gone through a weird moment in my life where fear and stuff like that came in. I said to myself, I think it's time. It's my moment for maybe to become a practitioner or something that could help me when I feel like I'm getting weak. So I'm going to try. I'm seeing him next week, so I'm going to ask him if he can get me on a program.
Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, I definitely recommend it. I've been doing it for a few years, and I'm not that much of a spiritual practitioner to any degree, but I can definitely attest to how it just helps your mental clarity and focus and acuity. I feel like my IQ has gone up having done it. It just helps you think better and clearer and way more.
Yeah, get some of the garbage out of there.
Yeah, exactly. It just sharpens your focus.
Back to the giggle.
Right, exactly.
It's getting back to that giggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And the beauty of it is its simplicity. I mean, you don't have to relearn technique after it's one technique, and it just deepens the more you do it.
It's amazing because I'm 73 and I know nothing about it, except that I've seen people go to it and I've seen changes in them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to it.
Yeah.
There's something to it. Yeah, it's become a big part of my life. So yeah, that's exciting that you're about to embark on that. I definitely recommend it.
I'm excited about it.
Cool. So, like I said, very familiar with your work and a lot of the principles that you attribute your life and success to. And one of the ones that I find the most fascinating is the idea of creating history as opposed to waiting for it to happen. And that's been a kind of huge pinnacle for the way that you've managed artists and your entire life. So I was wondering, as far as creating history, what demonstrated to you the power of possibility, that you could impart you could actually change history? Was there a single defining moment that was a light bulb?
I don't think I knew it was a defining moment. It's only when I look back that I see it as a defining moment. But when I was at the University of Buffalo, it was when we thought of ourselves as the Berkeley of the East. Mm-hmm. And it was a time when we were burning the ROTC buildings, and we're very empowered. It was free love. Mm-hmm. There was no AIDS. It was a wide open sexual field. We were that generation, when Kennedy got shot, that was my generation. And we felt really empowered. And we got very high, which was a new thing also. Mm-hmm. And one night, this college prank turned into a gigantic event, and it was basically a prank of writing history. There was a dormitory. In those days, you used to take these little black pills called Black Beauties, and you'd stay up for days doing your test during the test period. So guys had been up for days on these Black Beauties, and they were studying for a biology exam, and they were hysterical, laughing that the thallus of Marcantia, which was the sex organ of a fern, sounded like the ruler of a country. Well, that turned into 2,000 people at the Buffalo airport. A fellow named Artie Shine, who was a student, getting off the airplane in a turban, being met by the mayor. the 2,000 people who were picketing this fictitious person that didn't exist that we created, said it was coming to Buffalo. And once the mayor fell for it, we then said he was anti-Semitic. So we got the B'nai B'rith, got 2,000 people at the airport who broke through the airport glass to get to this guy with pickets. There's great stuff you can Google it. It's great stuff.
Oh my God.
And finally got arrested. The dean helped us out. But I think later on, when I started with Alice, our goal wasn't to get people to like the music. Our goal was to get parents to hate Alice.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do I do that? How can I do that? And so I smoked a few joints. And I said, wouldn't it be great if he got arrested for indecent exposure? And I thought back to my Alice days, and I said, I can do that. That's easy. Let me just put him up somewhere naked and call the police. And that's really how it started. And that one didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
The story is it was the experience. I just watched Teddy Pendergrass documentary last night, and Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes' last show was The Experience, which I never knew. And I managed Teddy, but I never knew that. I didn't manage Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. I only managed Teddy afterwards.
Right.
And that was the club where I paid the promoter $50 to put Alice on stage in clear plastic clothes. And I called the police to have him arrested. And the clothes fogged up by the time the police got there.
Right.
So it didn't work, but in my brain, it just reinforced. I didn't rehearse it right. I fucked it up, but the concept worked. I had the police there. I had him naked, and that then became my modus operandi. Wasn't, instead of waiting for stuff to happen, I'm going to throw a chicken on the stage and not tell anybody. Right. And here we go. I know the next day the newspaper is going to talk about this chicken on the stage, even if John Lennon was there. And that just became a modus operandi. Right. And for me, it was, how do I get above the noise? It was never to create history to rob anybody or create history to go to war, at least in my brain. It was to get above the noise. And in those days, it was just primetime TV and newspapers. There was no cable. Mm-hmm. So it was fairly easy to predict what would get above the noise. I knew that in London, traffic was always on television. Real easy to block up traffic for 30, 40 miles. I know how to do that. I've seen that in the news 400 times. The trucks break down. They show you on the helicopter shot of the traffic backed up. I know how to do that. So let me put a nude picture of Alice on that. So when the helicopter comes down and shows the traffic, it's like, what is this disgusting guy? And every parent's going to run to their kids and say, don't you dare go see this guy. And they don't even know who he is.
But they do now. Yeah.
So that's what I mean by creating history. That's where it starts with a goal. Mm-hmm. How do I achieve that goal? What will get people, and how can I motivate people to buy tickets or buy albums or pay attention? And then I think about if I pick up the newspaper, what would get, if I saw it, So anyway, that's the method.
Interesting.
Involves cannabis. I really get out of my brain and get way ahead. And what I've learned is that it's all in the details. So you have to really put yourself in that moment, or else the clothes are going to always fog up. You have to so it really, and that's my bliss state. So I get my quiet place, which Joseph Campbell talks about, which is my jacuzzi. Mm-hmm. My bliss state is being able to pull off those kind of events that, help artists define who they are.
Yeah.
And help them find their audience. And I do my 20, 30 minutes and usually come out with something, which is what Joseph Campbell talked about in 74, but I didn't know how to get to it. But that's what I think transcendental meditation is probably really good at. It's getting to that quiet space.
Yeah.
Where whatever is your bliss thing gets really focused.
Yeah. It trains your mind to constantly just return to your own home base. And from that place, you think better, you think clearer, you think bigger. Yeah. It's definitely, it's an extraordinary technique for sure.
That's basically what Joseph Campbell always said. He said, you'll find it just stay quiet, find a place you're comfortable, give it 20 minutes a day. You will find your bliss. You may end up playing the piano.
Yeah.
All 20 minutes. You may end up, who knows, but so I'm sure that's the same.
Yeah, definitely. That special with Bill Moyers is actually on Netflix right now. If you're interested in seeing it again. Right. Yeah, the entire series. It's like 10 hours worth of interviews, but they're all on Netflix.
It is fantastic.
Yeah. I think they were all done at the Skywalker Ranch because obviously George Lucas.
They were done at the Skywalker Ranch, and George says he was the influence for Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. The whole hero's journey is Luke Skywalker, and yeah. Another thing that I was wondering is, being somebody who has been able to transverse across so many different industries, music, movies, tequila, chefs, kind of all of the above, are there any kind of consistent business principles that apply to all of these different areas? Or is there some notion of, I've heard this theory of multiple roads converging at the top. In other words, if you make it in one industry, you can apply those similar principles to make it in other industries. What are some of those, the most consistently present principles you see that factor into success across these multiple industries that are notably hard to get into?
Yeah, for me, I think there's a lot of layers to that question. So for me, it was basically the same because my goal was the same. I think that if my bliss was, getting someone through. So for many people, bliss is the reward you get from having brought someone through. That never really interested me that much. Mm-hmm. So for me, they were almost all the same industries because what I provided was a way for someone to get through the noise. But I think my sense would be that all the industries are basically the same, the business side. But I never really, I saw little things like the liquor industry of every business I've ever been involved with is the best because there's no returns, no spoilage, no collected debts. And those things are really important if your goal is accumulation. Mm-hmm. For me, it was more vehicles it was a way to make my artist money and famous by hooking with a product and thinking of the artist as a brand. So I was never building businesses. I was selling my artists to build brands, mostly for other people. I think the only one we kept, Cobble Wobble, which we eventually sold. Right. With Sammy. But Cobble Wobble was a way to lengthen Sammy's career. That's how that came about. That was the same kind of thought,
Same idea. So it's all been in the service of others.
Yeah, pretty much. And then once it goes, they go do their thing, and I come back to Hawaii.
Not bad.
But I think, I have to assume that it's a combination of toughness, some greed, and amazing work ethic and ability. Yeah. And those are the ones that rise to the top in every business that I've seen. Yeah. And how much you accumulate becomes a matter of what you're doing it for. Right. And there's no wrong or right. I think it's whatever feels good to you.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. As far as toughness, in the documentary, Michael Douglas described you as having a heart of gold, but also having the capacity to be a real motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. When you represent artists, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
Um, there's it's such fool's gold to the rest of the world. They forget that it's humans.
Mm-hmm.
You have the best in the world trying to get through with schemes and scams, and so that my own life I wasn't as good protection, but for them that's sort of that's what they pay me for.
Right. Well, what I'm curious about is having both of those qualities. I mean, you as somebody who's always done compassionate business, but also having that tough side. These seem like paradoxical qualities, but they seem complementary in you. And I'm wondering, how are you able to balance that sense of real strong, assertive toughness, but also real serious, strong compassion, where everybody
real honesty, just real honesty.
So it all comes down to honesty.
I think so. I mean, for me, it basically does. People maybe not like hearing the stuff at the other end of the phone, but I think being fast answers, direct, honest. I get things for Alice. I mean, Alice is really the only thing I do now.
Yeah.
And, I get things that it's not even within the realm of possibilities going to do it. And it'll start off with, I had dinner with Alice 3 nights ago, and he really loves the idea of and I send back and I say, unfortunately, Alice doesn't really have anything to do with that decision. And I appreciate the fact that you bought him dinner, but I've already got that corner covered. Thank you very much. It was thank you for reaching out to me.
Yeah.
Instead of, I'll check with Alice and we've been together so long, I know where it's at,
right.
And formal rhythm, that would be like 2 or 3 months of emails. Oh, I tried to get him. I'll get back to you next Wednesday.
Right. All that just back and forth bullshit that plagues entertainment.
And then probably every business at that level.
Right.
But person with celebrities, even more so.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always really honest and direct. And if it's painful, it's painful, but it comes at you fast and with honesty. That's really all I can do. Mike Myers tells a great story.
What's that?
That in the documentary, I think he told it in the documentary. Maybe it's in the book.
Oh yeah, on Wayne's World.
Yeah. That's what I do. Then I called him up and said, "Okay, here's the real truth. I had to put you in a corner. You've run out of time. I owe you big time, but I work for him. I don't work for you.
Right.
And it's really important. And you're a schmuck to say no because it doesn't affect you one iota. It's 10 seconds. Nobody's going to know what it is.
Right.
So I had to put you, since you said no, which you shouldn't have, I had to put you in a place where you couldn't say no anymore." But
right.
I didn't wait for him to bust me. I called him right up and told him exactly the truth of what it was and why I did it and why he wasn't being hurt and how it was a win-win for both.
Right.
And, sorry if
sorry to ruffle feathers, but yeah, I think that's a perfect case study in being assertive, playing hardball, but in a scenario where there are no victims and no blood is drawn.
Exactly. You work that extra effort to make sure there's no blood, and if you have to draw a little, you go back and make it really clear that you really, it's just not the way you operate and can make it up to you. And Mike and I became, obviously he made the movie. I mean, we became great friends. One of the few people I communicate with almost every week.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Really cool.
But it started on, but I think that's really what separates in the industries I've seen the ones who really get ahead and get ahead in a way that they're not leaving blood everywhere.
Right.
You have to do what you have to do, but you don't have to be ugly about it.
Right.
And you can, if you have to do something, you work as hard as you can to make sure the other person's a winner. I don't like winners and losers. I like winners and winners.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a huge mindset to enter business with.
Yeah.
So I'd love to shift gears and talk about Supermensch a little bit. So I was wondering how much of a hand you had creatively in the creation of Supermensch. What's that? None?
None whatsoever.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't want any. I didn't see it till it was done.
Mm-hmm.
Mike wouldn't final edit till I saw it. I don't remember if there was. I don't think there were any changes. No, the only bump I had with it, I did a few of the interviews because it was more convenient. Mm-hmm. So I did them at my house. Like my cousin Patty happened to be here. She's 92 and she couldn't really travel. So I wasn't in them, but I set him up. But I went to New York about 3 months, maybe 3 months into it. And I went up to his house, and it was like walking into CSI. The entire house was pictures of my life on the wall with notepads and note things. And yes, I still haven't. I don't think I've met the kid who played me yet.
Oh no?
Maybe I met him at one of the premieres. It was such a blur. But yeah, no, I stayed really far away from it.
That's funny. Did you meet the kid who played Teddy?
Did not meet the kid who played Teddy.
He looked a lot like him. It kind of blew my mind. That's really funny. So I know that you're still obviously repping Alice right now, right? That's great. And you both still go on tour together and just like old times.
I don't go anymore, but he does a lot. He loves it out there. He's an investor now. The kids are all out of the house. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The wife's in the show, so she comes out with them. And
oh, wow. That's great.
Have a good time.
So I know that you've never had a contract with Alice, and there's been a number of other artists who you've not had contracts with, and you've done things on a handshake. And I mean, I'm fascinated as to whether or not this is a recommended way to do business in your case. What have been some of the benefits of it? Obviously, I would imagine there's a spirited sense of we're in this together. If you don't have a contract, you don't have the lawyers involved. But is this a course of action that you recommend in the right circumstances?
Yeah, it's a hard one to actually answer.
I'm sure it's very nuanced because your relationship with Alice obviously is very.
Yeah, it's also nuanced, and I don't. When I look again, when you look back at my life, I'm not sure that I made all the right decisions. Some of them were probably made for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. Some kind of arrogance, maybe on my part. I think that now having great grandchildren who I probably would like to leave more to, and charities that are so in need, and seeing the waste of a lot of the money that I help create. But in a normal management relationship, whatever you worked on, you continue to earn your money on. Mm-hmm. So if you worked on 3 albums with an artist, and then you separate ways on those 3 albums, rather than the new manager getting the money usually went to the original manager. For whatever reason, arrogance or something, never wanted it.
Never wanted the residual money after you were done.
Like, if I'm not doing the work, I don't want the money. And I think that was some kind of false arrogance.
You think that sounds, having her hear that sounds like humility as opposed to arrogance.
I don't know about humility. Okay. It sounds nice to say, but I'm not sure. That maybe. I don't know. I really don't know if we should. At the time, it was not wanting to take something from any of them. That's what I would tell kids in the office. Hey, man, you work for your money. You work for a living. We are lucky people. We've done really well. God bless them. Let them go off and
yeah.
But in retrospect, every one of them gave the new managers that commission. So the kids in my office who would have shared in it because they all shared, and some of them could use it right now.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that just not. So it's a hard one to say. I don't know if Alice and I would have had 50 years if we had a contract.
Wow.
Because there were years we didn't speak.
Mm-hmm.
at all. Didn't see each other, didn't speak, didn't have a phone call. He was headed in the direction I didn't like.
Right.
I think if there had been a contract, it probably would have been it would have been a different relationship. Not having the contract, our friendship was always more important than our business relationship.
Right.
But if anybody can have that, it's a great thing to have.
To have a relationship that's friendship first and then business secondary.
You can talk and say, if we do ever split, like the only thing I'd like is to retain my percentage. Maybe that's what I would have probably done different. Ask them to sign something that says, if we ever split, that on the stuff I worked on, I keep my percentage.
Right. Right.
That would be probably
Gotcha.
my advice.
All right. Last few questions here. So you've been very outspoken about the dangers of fame, so to speak. And in your experience, having worked with so many celebrities and artists, what are the qualities of those who are able to survive and thrive within fame and still remain on top of it and remain happy and stable?
I think you have to find a crutch to help you. I'm not experiencing fame like anybody I've ever worked with, but even at my level, we started our conversation. I'm at 73. I'm going to transcendental meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure part of the fame from the movie is part of what is moving me to that. That even that little touch of fame, although I can't really feel it, I can't really see it, but that's how we started off our conversation. I've never felt I did it before. I can't say that that's what's different, but it certainly is a contributing factor. It's different walking through an airport, having someone tracking you. And in my case, you don't know why, because I'm not Alice. Alice, you always know why. It's just you go through life a little bit differently, and when you get to be one of those guys, you have to figure out a way to embrace it instead of reject it.
Right.
Which is not always the easiest thing to do, because the humans on the other side are not as always embraceable. You get a lot of weird people out there.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. And it all takes time. We all only have 24 hours in a day.
Right.
So it all takes time. If you're going to be, compassionate to people and be in gratitude, you can't just say, "Hey, I'm busy." Someone comes over to you and says, "I've seen the movie," and I was born in Oceanside. I have my dog bit me too. I was going to Starbucks for a coffee. No, you have to sit and
right.
Or you become someone that's you don't want to be.
Yeah.
So it's difficult.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
So I know you had worked with Wes Craven and John Carpenter on a number of occasions. How was that? How was working with those two directors? How was the overall horror business for you?
It was fantastic. It was a really interesting moment. It's sort of when I had this little independent film company in LA, and nobody ever saw our movies, so we never made any money.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved the company. I loved the films. I wanted to keep it going. I loved the employees. We did Stop Making Sense and Koi Anaskatsi and Kiss of the Spider Woman. But in those days, Kiss of the Spider Woman's the only one that maybe grossed $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And we distributed. So anyway, I decided to do some research. Home video was becoming very big. Cable TV was becoming very big. So I decided I would do some research to see what genre of movie cost of production to gross was the biggest money earner. And by far it was horror movies.
Right.
In those days, if you made a horror movie cheap enough, just the video sales. So Jim Wyatt, who was chairman of, I think he was just president then of William Morris and a good friend, I went to and I said, listen, who are the two hottest horror directors in America? And he said, John Carpenter, Wes Craven. And I said, who represents me? He said, I do. I said, good. Who do they hate the most and why? They hate the fucking studios because they won't give them last cut. Last cut means it's your movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have last cut, it's their movie. What's on the screen.
Right.
So I said, okay, I'll give them, here's what I'll do. I'll give them last cut. They have to guarantee they won't give me the name of the movie till it's finished, that I'll never get a script in my office, that they never will let me on the set. I'll give them X amount of dollars a movie. I don't want a budget. They can't ever give me a budget. They can spend a penny on the movie, or they can spend everything I give them on the movie. I really don't care. The only thing I care about is that when the first card comes up over the title of the movie, whatever that title is, which I don't care about, it says John Carpenter's blah, blah, blah. Wes Craven's blah, blah, blah. I give them a check. They never have to meet me. They don't have to see me. They don't have to talk to anybody. There's no assistance. There's no budgets. There's no approvals. There's no nothing.
It's full creative control.
Yeah. And that's what I did. I gave them, we did 4. I think we did 2 movies with each, and then Wes hit with a big movie at Miramax. I let him out of my 3rd movie to do it, so then they bought me out. And John ended up doing something. He gave me an executive producer credit on it. I think we're going to maybe do something again with They Live. But it was it was a great experience for both of us. I mean, for all 3 of us, I think, they made movies they really wanted to make.
Mm-hmm.
In John's case, he made some good money. Wes spent a lot of it on special effects.
Yeah.
Shaka was a real special effects movie that was early in the special effects game. So,
right. Yeah.
That'd be done a couple of times. Yeah.
And you were giving these artists creative control well before the days of Blumhouse,
the model that then Blumhouse used.
Mm-hmm.
That became the model basically for genre movies.
Right. Are you still producing in any capacity right now in film?
I have some things with John because of the They Lives, and I did Teddy Pendergrass's documentary with the BBC.
Oh, nice.
We won last Friday the Audience Award.
Congratulations.
Yeah, really. It's a really good piece.
Oh, that's great.
So a couple of those things. A guy named Michael Brody, whose life story I had bought back in the 70s, that's being made a documentary now, but not really active.
Gotcha. And you're on the board of Real Effects, right? I know some of those guys.
Yeah. Love my next door neighbor is Tom Kartsotis.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I love those guys. Steve's great. Dave, the whole gang. Very
cool. So bringing it back to Joseph Campbell, what is your bliss right now? What are you working on right now that you're most excited about?
I'm getting excited to try this transcendental meditation. My cooking, I've been perfecting my Chinese cooking. It's been really exciting. I made a great shrimp with lobster sauce, just like back in Long Island in my youth.
Oh, nice.
Work-wise, Alice, we're going to do a new show. We just came up with some funny ideas for a new show.
Very cool.
a big benefit New Year's Eve for the Maui Food Bank. We raised I think $400,000 last year. We fed the island basically for the year. God. And it's a great show. It's Steve Tyler and Alice, Dave Mason, and Linda Carter, and Michael McDonald, Pat Simmons. Weird Al. So the same people every year for like 20 years. And all of them, just about all of them live here.
Oh, very cool.
So we have a great time.
So you're staying busy, obviously.
I'm staying busy, yeah.
My last question. So, I feel like the examples that you've set, your words of wisdom, the life that you've led, I feel like these principles have never been more important than right now, given the climate that we're living in, the time of social unrest. Is there any chance of either a Supermensch 2 or any TV shows with you front and center? Are you looking at any other possible
some offers
projects?
I don't know. the less I leave Maui, the happier I am.
Right. So would have to shoot in Maui.
It's really hard to do stuff here. I've had a couple of interesting things. I mean, I hope somebody takes the Anthony Bourdaine slot.
Yeah.
I hope somebody comes in and does that. You know, that to me was worthwhile television. That was, beginning who he is and how much fun, he showed off cultures in a beautiful way. You put that against the climate that appears to be in America today, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Somebody, I watch way too much of the news today, and maybe that's where the fear comes from.
Yeah.
So, seeing everything I believe in falling apart in front of my eyes, and seeing a human population that's enjoying it, which is mind-blowing. I mean, I get a human doing what Trump does. We've had those kind of people all through life. It's just amazing to see Americans, 2%, 3%, okay, but to see 35% of Americans be white supremacists in 2018, living in Maui, we don't see that.
Right.
It's not even in the realm of possibility. Mm-hmm. Living in, so it's a bizarre time to be living. I don't know what to do. It's weird. I don't think many of us know what. I think if we really had real control, I think we'd all know what to do. But 38% of the public is a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, and they got guns.
Right.
We don't. And they don't have any rules, and we do.
Yeah.
It's a tough moment.
Now, they're definitely strange times. It's just why we need these voices of compassion.
Yeah. I don't know what we all did wrong. It's really wild.
Yeah, definitely.
But we all have to take some responsibility, especially us older folks.
Right.
We have to take some responsibility for this. I watched a thing in Charlottesville, and it was 25 and 30-year-old kids I see in college holding Nazi flags. Like, what did we do wrong? Holy shit. And they weren't actors.
Right.
That's the part that, to me, Trump is Trump. But to see that is like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was like a horror movie.
That was like a horror movie. Yeah. And to see who they were, if it was like, I mean, I guess I'm prejudiced to some extent, but if it was all guys that are 65 in overalls without teeth.
Right.
Okay, I get it, pissed off. When you see 25-year-old good-looking, like, football players from college.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
No, that was really unsettling.
Yeah, really unsettling. Yeah.
Part of me hopes that by doing that, by them coming out, they're making themselves known, that they've been here for a while. They just have not had an outlet. And we can isolate the areas and the places where people need, because I think it's a matter of education. Like, the people who are waving Nazi flags, it's clearly uneducated. They're taught hatred. And I think that I'm really hoping this is it's darkest before the dawn scenario, where all these bad things have to purge so that we can finally get back to where we need to be. But having lived through the 60s during another time of social unrest, is there any advice that you have for young people right now who do want to make a difference?
Yeah, fight. Like, fuck it. Do something. You don't have to play by their rules. That's part that's, I think that set up my whole life, was winning that, although I was told after one of a podcast where I said it, I got a phone call from someone who said Vietnam War didn't happen until 10 years later, which I guess is sort of true. But I think my generation felt like by burning the cards and by burning the buildings and by doing the things we did, we helped to stop the war.
Right.
We actually got empowered. And there was a couple of decades there where you could feel that empowerment. And then it all turned corrupt somewhere down the road. And these people, I don't even know. I don't know what the answers are. But I know we felt empowered. We were, and I think you see our generation doing all that. doing the apples, doing that empowerment thing of like, we can do it.
Yeah.
We can change this world.
Yeah.
And that seems to be gone. But maybe coming back a little bit, the numbers for the last election look promising.
Yeah, I think we're getting there slowly but surely. I mean, I'm definitely hopeful about it. But
yeah.
But
definitely slowly.
Yeah, definitely slowly but surely. One other kind of random question is somebody who, just given the uniqueness of your life, there's only one other person who comes to mind who's had a similar trajectory, having started in music management and then moved on to movies and just had an incredible amount of success, and that's Jerry Weintraub. Did you guys ever work together or cross paths or know each other?
Never really as close as we probably should have, but I knew him well. I liked him a lot. He was one generation up from me.
Yeah.
He was one step up, and they were a pretty close fraternity.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah. They were pretty. It's also the way Jerry was making his money in the early days when I was really rolling. He wanted to stay off the radar screen because he was getting buildings, but that always ended up coming from an artist and a promoter.
He was getting buildings of what?
He was the first guy to put together buildings where you'd buy an act for a lot of buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a piece of the act, every act that came in, like in Chicago,
right,
whether he promoted the show or didn't promote the show, because he gave that building Elvis and he gave that building Sinatra. And he made a deal with the company that did Zeppelin. He said, you're only going to get these acts if I get a piece of every act.
Got it.
Everything that comes through here. So he started accumulating buildings. He used his power with promoting Elvis. So we were his beneficiaries.
Got it. Interesting ways of doing business.
Yeah. But I have a lot of respect for him.
Very cool.
A lot of respect for him.
Shep, this has been a tremendous honor for me. Again, I've kind of considered you a spiritual mentor for a long time. I return to your wisdom and your books and the movie again. And I'm very humbled by you having taken so much time with me. Thank you again. I really do appreciate it.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. And again, I feel very fortunate to have stumbled across your work, and it benefits my life every single day. So thank you again.
Thank you for that.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. All right. So I'm definitely kind of at a loss for where to even begin to try to recap the major lessons from this conversation. But I highly recommend you watch the Supermensch documentary and read Shep's autobiography. If you got anything out of his words today, these two resources will really blow your mind. Anyway, I'm going to try my best to do a decent recap on some of the key takeaways from my conversation with Shep Gordon. Number one, don't wait for history to be made. Make it yourself. When he was managing Alice Cooper, Shep realized early on that the only way to break through the noise of the music industry is to stop waiting around for audiences and record labels to take note of your act and instead force them to with a spectacle that they cannot ignore. Shep became renowned at crafting large and elaborate PR stunts. Most notably, he had a truck with a naked image of Alice Cooper with a python over his genitals break down in the middle of Piccadilly Circus, thus causing a huge traffic jam. The image of the truck was all over the news, and the stunt sold out stadiums and gave Alice a huge presence in England. Mission accomplished. The big learning here is to stop waiting for the powers that be to take notice and force them to by creating history yourself. Number two, study Joseph Campbell. Shep regularly rewatches the Bill Moyer conversational documentary series with Joseph Campbell, which is actually on Netflix right now. Multiple people, including George Lucas, cite the works of Joseph Campbell as pricelessly inspirational and insightful. In fact, George Lucas used his work as the foundation for Star Wars. Campbell teaches students to follow their bliss and chart their own path towards heroism. Ultimately, Campbell's work is a source of empowerment that comes from centuries of wisdom. These works are a guiding force in Shep's life and therefore something very worth checking out. Number three, always create win-wins. It's no surprise that the entertainment business is very shark-infested, loaded with bullies, fast talkers, and schemers of all stripes who in many cases are motivated entirely by their own self-interest. Across both music and movies, two notoriously cutthroat industries, Shep was the big exception. He was a perpetually nice person and always did compassionate business. And yet he was still extremely successful. That being said, in order to operate in either of these businesses, you do need to have the capacity to be extremely tough and assertive, or else you'll be completely eaten alive. Shep was able to be both a nice guy and a really tough motherfucker. And the key to doing both was ensuring that there was always a win-win and that no real blood was ever drawn in any confrontation. In every deal, there's usually a loser and a winner, someone who gets a bargain and someone who gets hung out to dry, at least a little. Shep goes to great lengths to make sure that even in difficult and complex business deals, there are always only winners and that both sides are having their needs met tremendously. This is big and it's very unique to Shep, and it's one of the reasons why everyone in the industry completely and totally adores him. Anyway, there's so many more things to learn from Shep, so go see Supermensch, go read Shep's autobiography, and don't forget to subscribe to the Nick Taylor Horror Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and everywhere you listen. Thanks again for listening to the Nick Taylor Horror Show.